All right, let's just confront our assumptions right out of the gate here. When you picture a stereotypical business student fighting for survival, what do you see? You're probably picturing them burning the midnight oil, chugging their fifth cup of coffee, and literally on the verge of a total breakdown, trying to juggle insane academic demands with high-stakes careers. And that image gets magnified big time when we're talking about a severe economic downturn.
And the research perfectly captures that intense recessionary reality. It really sets up the whole myth of the overwhelmed MBA. The researchers behind this explainer source material, published in the Ayub Journal of Organizational Behavior, they looked closely at this exact landscape. They saw a workforce dealing with massive layoffs, an economy teetering on the edge, and employees forced into a brutal first-in, first-out reality. People were literally being asked to take on entirely new responsibilities with zero training, just to keep the lights on. So that brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. With all these extreme pressures bearing down on them, are these future business leaders actually breaking down? I mean, are the academic rigors of an MBA program combined with a brutal recession creating a generation of managers who are just too stressed to function? Well, to find out, we really have to look past the stereotypes and dig into the actual data.
Section 1. Decoding workplace stress.
Before we uncover that data, though, we need to get a handle on the actual realities of workplace stress. We toss the word stress around a lot, usually as a complaint, but scientifically, it's a lot more nuanced. It turns out, stress isn't always the enemy. We actually have to distinguish between motivating eustress and debilitating distress. Eustress is that positive jolt, the adrenaline that helps you hit a deadline, sparks creativity, and keeps you sharp. Distress is the one we all fear. It's that demotivating, crushing pressure that causes total burnout. So the goal isn't zero stress at all. It's just staying out of distress.
This distinction ties perfectly into the two very different ways professionals experience being overloaded on the job. The researchers broke this down into qualitative versus quantitative overload. Now, quantitative overload, that's what you're probably complaining about on a Friday afternoon, right? You just have too many assignments, a full-time job, family stuff, and simply not enough hours in the day. But qualitative overload is a whole different beast. That's when you're handed a task that is completely beyond your current abilities.
The researchers use this fantastic analogy for qualitative overload, and it absolutely hits the nail on the head. Imagine being at the peak of your game on the basketball court, and suddenly, boom, someone throws you into a boxing ring with a heavyweight champion. I mean, sure, you've got the athletic drive, but you have exactly zero of the specific skills needed to survive in there. That mismatch, that creates an immense, immediate spike in distress.
Section 2. The surprising data reveal. Okay, let's see what happened when the researchers actually measured these overload perceptions. They surveyed a really robust sample size, 346 MBA students in the South Florida region. And honestly, they were expecting to find severe levels of distress. They used this specialized 10-statement overload stress inventory, asking everyone to rate their experiences from 1 to 5. Based on the academic consensus at the time, they fully expected these students to report scores off the charts, placing them right in the high or severe stress ranges. But wow, here is where the myth just completely shatters. Looking at the actual survey results, the overall average score was a mere 25.88. To put that into perspective, according to the inventory's criteria, a score between 40 and 50 means severe stress, and 30 to 39 is high stress. So a score of 25.88? That completely contradicts the whole narrative of the universally burnt-out business student. These scores fall firmly into the moderate stress range, subverting all those expectations. A score between 20 and 29 is actually the sweet spot. It's manageable stress. It turns out, despite the recession, despite the mountain of homework, and despite job insecurities, the vast majority of these students were coping just fine. They were functioning right in that healthy eustress zone, managing everything without tipping into debilitating distress. Now, to figure out who was actually feeling the heat, we have to clear the deck of the hypotheses that totally flopped. The researchers assumed, understandably, that maybe new MBAs would be way more stressed than senior ones, or that gender might play a role, or that people with less than 5 years of management experience would be struggling the most. But no, the data showed absolutely no statistical difference in any of those categories. Men, women, rookies, veterans, they all hovered right in that same manageable, moderate range.
Section 3. The generational divide.
So if gender, seniority, and experience didn't dictate stress levels, what on earth did? Well, this leads us to the one demographic variable that absolutely blew the consensus out of the water. The answer was all about when these students were born. The crucial point here is that older MBAs were experiencing a significantly higher burden of stress compared to their younger counterparts.
When they split the group, analyzing young MBAs under 26 against older MBAs over 36, the older students were measurably closer to that high-stress boundary.
And the reason for this divide is just fascinating. Older MBAs were trapped as the sandwich generation. They were balancing elder care and childcare, all while grappling with steep tech learning curves. These older students, boomers, in the context of this study, were highly concerned about job loss because, frankly, they had built lifestyles that were expensive to maintain. They're paying for kids in college while taking care of aging parents. Meanwhile, the younger students, they were stressing over micromanagement, bureaucratic hurdles, and wanting fast upward mobility. Their stressors were super focused on their career trajectory, not total life balance survival.
On the flip side, younger MBAs have essentially been conditioned for multitasking and rapid tech adoption since childhood, which naturally insulated them against that quantitative overload we talked about. Because they grew up natively using computing and communication tech, they are just highly efficient at managing multiple streams of tasks at once. This technological fluency acts like a shield. It cuts down the actual time required to get things done, which lowers their quantitative stress and keeps their overall scores safely in the moderate zone.
Section 4. The network solution.
Okay, so now that we've debunked the myth and pinpointed the real drivers of stress, how do we actually apply these academic findings to your career? The researchers didn't just measure stress, they outlined exactly how the most successful students kept their stress perfectly moderate, even during a recession. And get this, the most successful students didn't just hyper-focus on their tasks. Instead, they prioritized relationship building across their organizations. Business schools often train students to focus relentlessly on profit maximization, which can easily lead to severe stress. But the students who kept their cool realized that generating wealth actually requires healthy, trusting relationships.
This insight forms the basis of a really practical 3-step proactive strategy that successful MBAs use to stay in that healthy, moderate zone. First up, basic mental and physical fitness is non-negotiable. If you aren't healthy, you simply can't manage overload. Second, as we just saw, building peer networks is huge. Sometimes a colleague or even a competitor has already solved the exact problem you're currently stressing over. And third, the highest achievers actively create a strict balance between their work tasks and their personal lives, hobbies, and families.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought from the researchers. Managing your career is really no different than managing a company. And you can't be profitable long-term if your primary asset is burning out. If you consistently push yourself into severe distress, you are literally mismanaging your most vital resource, you. By understanding your specific generational stressors and actively building your networks, you can navigate even the toughest economy right in that powerful, highly effective zone of moderate eustress.